There are few gaming franchises as confusing as The Legend of Zelda. For us, it's one of the jewels that sits in Nintendo's crown, but to everyone else outside the bubble, what a Zelda game even is must be downright baffling. But it wasn't always like this. Back when the internet screamed at you for just using it and picking up your phone counted as a rep, if I mentioned The Legend of Zelda, you'd probably think of top-down 2D pixels, as seen in the likes of Zelda 1 and A Link to the Past. And you'd be right. But I assumed, as many did, that Zelda's jump from 2D to 3D in 1998 signaled that we'd never again spend hours staring at the top of Link's blocky pixel head. That was until the Oracle games rocked up on the Game Boy and announced that, hey, there's still absolutely a home for this style of Zelda game, perfect as they are for the lower-powered handhelds that can't handle 3 dimensions. But this power distinction no longer exists, not just because Nintendo now only has one basket to put its eggs in, but because we've been seeing 3D graphics on handheld Zelda games since Phantom Hourglass 18 years ago. Now you're probably thinking, wait, 2D, top-down, overhead, bird's eye? Does it really matter? After all, that kind of Zelda game, whatever you want to call it, isn't dead at all. It was literally the last Zelda game released and it seemed to do just fine. In fact, if we take a look at a graph showing the reported sales numbers of each 2D and 3D Zelda game back to back, we can see that, well, apart from the towering Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom skewing the data, these kinds of Zelda game never really went away. And it's true, but although these top-down games have always been a mainstay, literal 2D Zelda with flat top-down sprite-based graphics is something Nintendo themselves abandoned a hell of a lot earlier than you might think.
The last 2D Zelda game we saw was Cadence of Hyrule back in 2019.
No, it wasn't. It was a spin-off, and Nintendo played no part in it. Well, apart from taking all the money at the end.
Still a Zelda game, though.
Not a proper one.
Well, okay. Then the last sprite-based 2D Zelda game was actually Four Swords Anniversary Edition for the DSi back in 2011.
Nope, that was a re-release of an old GBA title, and it still doesn't count. It was just a Link to the Past with 4 swords stuck on the side of it like Salacious B. Crumb.
Right? Well, what about Minish Cap? Got a problem with that?
Yeah, okay. But even then it wasn't developed by Nintendo themselves, was it? Capcom did it. Absolute legends.
What difference does that make? Okay. The Oracle games?
They weren't developed by Nintendo either. Same team as the Minish Cap, actually. Legends.
Link's Awakening?
Yes, that's fine.
Finally.
Although...
Oh, what now?
Well, it's only got made because a few Nintendo chads were trying to port A Link to the Past onto the Game Boy, and it just got out of control.
Are you seriously suggesting the only answer you're happy with to the question, what was the last 2D sprite-based Zelda game, is A Link to the Past?
Ah, yes, that'll do. You need to calm down, you know, Hev. Who'd have thought 2D sprites could someone off so much?
We have to go all the way back to Link's Awakening to see a 2D sprite-based game developed by Nintendo in-house, with every other game since being either a spin-off, a remake, or developed by someone else entirely. And sure, even Link's Awakening only came about as a result of an afterwork side project. Throw in the fact that Zelda 2 is a bit of a black sheep, and the amount of proper, mainline 2D Zelda games of the classic ilk is shockingly small. So, it's easy to conclude that 2D Zelda has been dead since the Minish Cap, and dead to Nintendo since Link's Awakening, but that feels disingenuous. As the top-down games began to use 3D models, it meant the developers were now free to break out of the confines of the purely 2D space, but nevertheless, the general feel remained. I mean, we still call these games 2D Zelda today, despite the fact they haven't really been 2D for over 20 years. But with each new top-down game, I can feel them wanting to wriggle free of the imposed 2D limitations. There were the train sections in Spirit Tracks, wall merging in A Link Between Worlds,
and Echoes of Wisdom simply being Tears of the Kingdom with a 0 knocked off the end of the budget. If you're gonna keep doing the 3D all the time, what's the point? Why bother with a bird's eye view at all?
So everything looks the same as everything else? Echoes was new, fresh, and scratched that classic Zelda itch. It was brilliant.
Well, someone needs to tell Nintendo that pixel art has been all the rage this past decade. They don't need to keep injecting all this 3D into top-down games anymore. Everyone knows the only reason these games are still limping on is because they're cheaper and quicker to make than the proper ones.
Oh hell, if saving money was so important, they'd have just churned out some HD remaster of the Oracle games or something, wouldn't they? But they didn't.
No, they just dusted off the art style from the Link's Awakening remake instead. Why not just make it pixel art? Save some money, save some time, and they could put even less effort in.
That's so ridiculously ignorant and disrespectful, I don't even know where to begin. Not only have you insulted Grezzo and Nintendo, you've also had a go at anyone making pixel art games.
Yeah, I am that guy. But seriously, I don't know why Link's Awakening Remake wasn't a pixel art game. It would have been perfect.
It was perfect, hell. It got great reviews, sold well, and the art style was something we'd almost never seen before.
Yeah, not outside of kindergarten finger painting anyway.
Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have had an irreversible influence on the Zelda franchise. Whatever you think of them, that fairy is never going back in the bottle. It's so easy to see future top-down games continue to dilute themselves away from a pure 2D experience. I mean, the fact that 2D and top-down are phrases used interchangeably is a good indicator of how muddy the waters have become. Echoes was the first real stab at a wholly original top-down title since Spirit Tracks. And okay, it had that classic dungeon feel and overworld traversal, but the direction of travel was clear for all to see. Nintendo, or whoever's holding the reins this decade, can no longer produce a pure top-down Zelda without incorporating modern 3D innovations. So while it's true, many arguments could be made for when exactly 2D Zelda ceased to be. It depends where you even draw the line of what a 2D game is. For many, the last true 2D Zelda game is the Minish Cap. For others, the spirit lives on. But for me, it finally died with Echoes of Wisdom. This was the game that made me realize that if these top-down games continue, for better or for worse, they'll never again resemble the classic 2D Zelda of old.
How sad. Never mind. You know, I'm gonna say something that will shock you now.
Yeah, you usually do.
Well, you know the way you always go on and on? Oh, I'd love to see a remake of this. Oh, they should remaster that. You know, the way you always go on and on.
Yes, all right, you've made your point.
Well, I think the Oracle games should get a remake. But I don't want them to look like a bunch of Happy Meal toys have been emptied onto a special needs playmat.
I'm listening. Well, about the Oracle games, I mean.
It's time for Nintendo, or Grezzo, or whoever the it is, to finally roll out a proper 2D pixel art sprite-based Zelda game. Or games in this case.
I wouldn't mind that, you know.
Really flesh him out with big, beautiful, brand new pixel artwork. Make 'em big, make 'em gorgeous. Do you think it's time?
Yeah, it's time.
I think it's time. It would also prove Biffa's foaming, dribbling nonsense ramblings in this video null and void. The thought of which makes me smile so wide I could swallow your halo.
You're not swallowing anything. But it's funny you should mention Null, as that's the final boss in Echoes of Wisdom.
Ah, yes, so it was. Another nondescript blob for a final boss. Call me old-fashioned, but I like my heroes in tights, my 2D Zelda to be actually 2D, and my final boss fights to not be like this badass.